Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Willies. This is a progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is a program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, progressive, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. We are an independent media outlet that, unlike mainstream media beholden to corporations, we only owe allegiance to you. Remember, you can also send me a tweet at EGBERTOWILLIES. That is at Egberto Willies. Let us engage. It is Politics Done Right. Well, folks, welcome to one more edition of Politics Done Right. I'm Egberto Willies, your host. Thank you so kindly for being part of the show. We are going to have a great show for you today. Today is what I am going to call a teaching show on economics. Good economics, not boring. I promise you, not boring, not boring, not boring. But it's something that I think I need to do, and I think I need to do it not just this one time, but many times, because again, indoctrination isn't something that one solves in one occurrence, and I think it may be a good time for us to go through what is an economic system, etc., etc., etc. But before we get started, as we wait for more people to show up, we're gonna just kind of salute the people that are in the house. And today in the house, Mr. Patrick Magner, El Señor Patrick Magner 3758, beat out AVQ to be the first one in the chat. So I think, Patrick, you need to be jumping up and saying, AVQ, I finally got you at least one time. But right after that, we've got El Señor AVQ, Mr. Rudnin out of Brooklyn, New York. Patrick out of Houston, of course. Joe is in from Los Angeles, California. We have, of course, Lisa Blair out of Atlanta, Georgia. Yvette Avery Herod out of Atlanta, Georgia as well. Eric Hayes out of, let's see where, Kingwood, Atascocita. What can I say? You know, let's see what else we've got. Para ver. We also have, you know, I'm just going to mention this because I just find it kind of amusing and childish, right? The election, I mean, the thing is over. They're still after uh, Jasmine Crockett. Why? Why? Why, guys? Why are you doing that? It doesn't make any sense. Anyway, in our Substack chat, remember I missed the first few dozen, so right now we got William, who is from Bill Hoke, Buffalo, New York. Actually, his name is Bill Hoke, and he's from Buffalo, New York. How you doing, Bill? Great to have you here. We also have Gunther von Hoffman. I always like those names, von this, von that. I think that is like, what it is, Dutch, von this, or maybe not. I don't know where that is from. But anyhow, welcome to Politics Done Right. Thank you so kindly for being here. Let's see what else we have. Eric says Florida hospital sues patient who is refusing to leave. Excerpt. Yeah, I wonder why they're refusing to leave. Why are they refusing to leave? I don't know. Okay. Anyhow, as we kind of wait, people are kind of slow in coming. Again, you know how it goes when you're throttled, etc., etc., etc. That kind of stuff happens. So let me see. Remember, though, this is a call-in show as well. You can give us a call to 818-233-7747. I don't really want to get started with the economic system too quickly. So I think I got some shorts here from Brother Rudnin that I think I may go ahead and start with. The first one says, let's see, gas prices over well, that's not gas prices, over $100 a barrel. Let's see what that is. I hope it doesn't have any music in it. Let's go ahead and play that. We'll get started with that. Make sure everything is working since we're just getting started, and then we'll move it on. Vamos a comenzar con esto.
4 days ago, I said this. 2 weeks ago, before we attacked Iran, gas where I live was $2.39. You know what it is now? $3.54. Stating that gas has gone up $1.20 in 2 weeks. Guess how much it was when I went out today? $3.99. This clusterfuck of a war has been going on for about 2 weeks, and already gas is pushing $4 a gallon. And this isn't even talking about what they're experiencing over in California, where I hear it's already double that. And remember, shortly after this conflict began, experts were claiming that the cost of a barrel of oil was going to hit $100. A week ago, I checked and it was $93. As of today, when I just checked, it's $100.46. Iran has been saying that it's going to get much higher. It's going to get over $200 a barrel. Now take how much that gas has increased and is going to increase and apply it to the cost of what they need to conduct their operations over in Iran, and also how much more it's now going to cost to transport everything around this country, especially our food. Like I've been trying to tell you, MAGA, now everything that you buy is going to increase in price, possibly exponentially. So now that other countries around the world are getting new trade deals with China because they're abandoning them with us, and our prices and our costs are all going up along with our inflation and our unemployment, name me anything in this gigantic casserole of fuck that says America first.
None of it says America first. Another one for you. Hi, D. Coleman. Welcome aboard. How you doing, beautiful? We also have Cheryl Elkins in from Massachusetts. D is from Houston, Texas. Let's see. D says, looking forward to evacuating the White House and halls of Congress from the tyrants, grifters, and abusers. Sic semper tyrannis. Love that. Love that. Okay, one more short before we get a little bit deeper into the program. I don't know. We must be getting throttled. Where's everybody? Come on, guys. Come on in. Come on in, folks. Come on in. All right, let's see what else we got here.
So you're telling me the people who were laughing with the president about shitting on the women's hockey team last week really care about the freedom of the Iranian women? You're telling me that the people who are cheering on killing Iranian girls who turn into what? Iranian women for the freedom of Iranian women makes sense? Of course it doesn't. No, I can tell you in the same breath that the Ayatollah being gone is a good thing, and that bombing a little girl's school to do it is a bad fucking thing. I can tell you that we have one of the most advanced militaries that's ever existed, and so does Israel. There's no reason we did it that way, aside from personal vendettas and trying to ratchet up a World War III for our war profiteers. I can tell you that the destabilization of that region that we like to do every 10 to 20 years is fucking bad, and we're leaving a power vacuum for someone to fill, and they will inevitably do terrible things. I can also laugh at the fact that these same people who are cheering on freedom for Iranian women, they have people amongst them, nefarious actors in their party, who are working to build a repealing of the 19th Amendment movement in the United States, who are looking to what happened in Iran in 1979 for something similar in the United States in 26, 27, 28, or 30. That's right. When you look at the evangelical right and their plans for women in the United States, it is not very dissimilar to 1979 Iran. And yet they cheer because the president gave them the line, freedom, eagle squawk. Remove yourself from the binary thinking that exists. Expand your mind. Turn your big brain on.
And you know, she's right about what they have planned for women. And that movement that she spoke about really, really does exist. That movement really exists, and that is to repeal the 19th Amendment. So, for those that are continued to be supportive of this administration, yeah, keep it up. All right, folks, let's see. William says illegal war, rump insider is reigned today because war was started on false pretenses. And that's the first video that I need to pull up here. And of course, I didn't have it queued, but I will in a second because it turns out that a big MAGA supporter finally broke rank with Donald Trump. A Trump insider broke it off with Donald Trump. Check this out, and then we'll take it on the other side. The armor of this war of choice, the war against Iran that Donald Trump and Netanyahu launched, is coming to a head. See, apparently I don't have it all queued up yet. Let me go ahead and cue the right thing up here. and then we'll be ready to go. Apparently, I don't have it mapped. How can I not have that mapped? I thought that was mapped perfectly. Let's see if I can get it going now. Okay, get that off here, put that there. Now map it. The armor of this war of choice, the war against Iran that Donald Trump and Netanyahu launched, is coming to a head, and people are starting to speak up. Today, Joseph Kent, who was appointed by Donald Trump, decided to tell the truth and resigned. He said, after much reflection, and let me put that on the screen. After much reflection, I have decided to resign from my position as director of the National Counterterrorism Center effective today. I cannot, in good conscience, support the ongoing war in Iran. Iran poses no imminent threat to our nation, and it is clear that we started this war due to pressure from Israel and its powerful American lobby. I support the values of the foreign policies that you campaigned on. And he goes on to talk about how you support the president, et cetera, et cetera. But he complains about early in the administration, high ranking officials from Israel and influential members of the American media deployed a misinformation campaign that wholly undermined your America First platform and sowed pro war sentiment. Wow. To encourage a war with Iran. This echo chamber was used to deceive you into believing that Iran posed an imminent threat to the United States and that should you strike now, there was a clear path to a swift victory. This was a lie, and it's the same tactic the Israelis used to draw us into disastrous wars that cost our nation the lives of thousands of our men, etc. Now, let me just say this, okay? Let's be clear. Joe Kent ain't no hero. Yes, he's anti-war, but he ain't no hero. He served as director of the National Counterterrorism Center from 2025 until he resigned today, that is, and pointing out that there's no imminent threat. But this is a deep root. He has deep roots in MAGA politics and ideologically loyalty. Kent is not a neutral technocrat. He's a hard right political figure and former congressional candidate backed by Trump. With a record of advancing Trump-aligned narratives and policy positions, he promoted election denial and January 6 conspiracy theories. He's tied to extremist figures and far-right networks. Part of a broader conspiracy-driven government circle, Kent has been identified among Trump-era officials who embarrassed or amplified conspiracy thinking in government, reinforcing a pattern where ideological loyalty and disinformation intersect. So again, we have somebody telling the truth. This is a war that Netanyahu has been having wet dreams about. And he instituted a campaign to convince our president, Donald Trump, which isn't a very hard thing to do, and put us into a war costing over $2 billion a day, killing our citizens, murdering many in Tehran, Iran, and causing us a lot of pain. This is coming directly out of all our pockets. It is time for us to do something about it. Make sure you vote appropriately.
All of our country's
Make
problems.
sure you vote appropriately. I repeat, make sure you vote appropriately. Now, there's another story. Welcome aboard, American citizen. Welcome aboard. ¿Quién más llegó aquí? Cheryl Elkin says, this guy is a white supremacist. Good riddance. Yes, he is. But, you know, he's right up Trump's alley. Love himself some Trump. Commander Cool is in the house as well. Hi, Commander. How you doing? We also have Greg Owens in the house and Brenda Feinberg, Vegan Cindy. Thank you all for being here. Seems like we're throttled. I'm looking at the data here, and I am tired of having to work so hard to try to get us stuff up. Maybe I probably need to start sending things directly out. Anyway, another big story today. The story unfolding at Meta. And who's Meta again? The folks who make Facebook, right? Facebook's parent company is not merely about technology. It is not even primarily about artificial intelligence. It is about power, priorities and quiet restructuring of an economy that increasingly places machine above capital, above people. Right? Reports that Meta is considering cutting at up to 20% of its workforce, potentially more than 15,000 workers, should not be misunderstood as a sudden technological inevitability. This is not a case where machines have suddenly become so capable that humans' labor is obsolete. Rather, it is a deliberate corporate choice, a decision to redirect vast financial resources away from workers and toward artificial intelligence infrastructure, data centers, and a small cadre of elite engineers. In other words, the engineers that we trained, the engineers our tax dollars have built big universities for, that ultimately gave them their know how, that small amount of engineers are kept as we throw out workers. The distinction matters because when corporations say AI is replacing jobs, what they often mean is that they have chosen to invest in AI instead of invest in people. We understand that. I'm going to talk a little bit about that later on when we get into my third subject. Meta plans to spend tens of billions, likely $100 billion in the coming years on artificial intelligence. Imagine if we invested that in healthcare and people. Wow. That kind of capital does not materialize out of thin air. It comes from somewhere, and increasingly, it comes from labor. Cutting jobs become the mechanism by which corporations free up resources to fund their technological ambitions. In this sense, AI is simply a tool of efficiency. It is a destination for wealth that once circulated throughout wages, salaries, and human livelihoods, no longer. So here's the deal. Think about this. We have found so many ways to do things this way, right? We replace people with AI. And whenever we want efficiency in regular business, we lay people off. Whenever we want in healthcare to make more profits for the corporations and the shareholders, we either lay people off or we not give people care, one or the other, right? Think about it. The company's internal logic reflects a broader shift across corporate America. Executives argue that artificial intelligence allows fewer workers to do the same amount of work or more. Teams can be smaller, output can be higher, productivity can increase, but what happens to the workers who are no longer needed in this equation? The question is rarely centered in corporate boardrooms or investor calls. Look, I'm a small microcosm of AI, okay? My workflow would not be as extensive absent um, AI. And let me just tell you guys how I use AI. And the reason why I want to say it is I want to show what it has done. In the past, when my workflow meant uh, I do all the reading. AI can't do the reading and knowledge for you. AI can help you in finding stories. I can tell AI, I want to find out about Facebook and what it's doing with employees, but I don't want to simply restrict it to the New York Times or articles in the Washington Post. I want you to scan newspapers in Latin America and ask them and give me the articles and snippets of what others are saying around the world about this, right? if I if it weren't today, right, for me to bring all this information to you all as something that is cohesive, I would have to go to Google search for newspapers in these overseas areas that I think are reputable. After I've determined that, go and search for these particular articles and that people are talking about and all of that. I would have to do all of that, and that would take me hours upon hours to do. right? Now I can have an assistant. AI, by the way, there are two kinds of assistants in using AI. You can use AI for plagiarism, or you can use AI as an editor, as a researcher. I use AI as an editor, as a researcher. Okay, so I can give it these commands and say what I am looking for. Find me these articles, right? Then I can say, help me get the highlights out of this article and put it here. And then I will take that essay and look at it and then start to put. And first of all, I have already trained. I'm using ChatGPT. I've been advised that maybe it should be time to move to Claude because Anthropic did the right moral thing. After I do that, right? Before I did all of that, I've written 5 books so far. I'm on my 6th book. It's stalled. It's almost done, but it's stalled because there's so much happening, right? But anyhow, I asked AI to absorb every single book of mine so that it understands my ideology. It understands the things that I talk about. Like if I'm speaking to you right now, many times I'll reference How to Make America Utopia. That's one of my books. Or I will reference, as I see it, Class Warfare, the Class Warfare, the only resort to right wing doom, or How to Speak to Your Right Wing Relative Friends and Neighbors. So I've written all those books right out of, in a Starbucks, I wrote those books. I asked AI to pull those books in because it has the body of knowledge that represents me. And as I write blogs, I have several websites, egbertowillies.com, medium.com, egberto.substack.com, etc., that I write. I tell it to look at those articles so that it can, as it is giving me information, it can reference things that I speak about in my articles, right? If I had to go ahead and search my Medium articles, my Substack articles, my egbertowillies.com articles, my politicsdoneright.com articles. Spend a lot of time doing that, right? I can now go ahead and say, I've written about that before. Okay, tell me a little bit about what I said, XYZ, boom, and put it in give me the paragraph of what I did. And it comes back with my words, etc., that I've done. So that is a collaborative effort that helps me do more for all, right? If I, if let's say now I decided that I wanted to put out that same volume of information, practical, truthful, fact-based information. I would normally, as I grow, hire 3, 4, 5 people to work on all these researching this, etc. I pay ChatGPT, and ChatGPT becomes my researcher at an affordable rate. Am I doing a good thing? Um, it is all that I can do. Subscriptions to my newsletter is $5 a month, and with that, right, I can't afford to hire somebody, let alone what I believe in, that is hire somebody. And if I'm hiring somebody, I also want to give health care, all that kind of stuff, right? So therefore, AI and my brother Patrick is listening to me, and I don't think I've ever gone through this list of what I do for it, right? Also, when I'm creating a video, I don't write it out. I don't do any of that. I get all the things that I have. I may write down some bullet points on my videos, and just like if I were, I can speak and do a video faster than I can articulate that video on a piece of paper and then read it, right? But then I also, for every video that I have, I want to give people the options to absorb it in the form that they best prefer. And that is, you can watch the video, you can look at a summary of what the topic is about, or you can look at the essay of what's the topic is about. That format AI helps me with that format for every video as I feed it the transcript that I decode from my video. In other words, I do my video, I turn it into a transcript, I filter that transcript, then I edit the result, right? So um, I've got a workflow that is sumamente yo, that is, it's me with an assistant, right? Now, that gives me the ability to put out a lot of information. Like today, there may be 4 topics, and I may want to cover those 4 topics, and I may also want to have backlinks as examples to those topics, so that I can give if you if you share my podcast or you share my article with somebody else, while you may have faith in what I am saying because you've developed the trust in me, others may want to see a few links to authoritative lookups. I also provide that, right? But if that were done by the old fashioned way, where I had to hire a copy editor, I had to hire a couple of researchers, etc., like a newspaper used to do. I mean, if you go to Houston Chronicle or one of them, and you see their rooms where the people that are, for every article that goes out there, has to go do that research, it's a big job. So AI really, really does a good job in that kind of work. Okay, it really does a good job in that kind of work. Now, um, let's see. Here's the thing. Now, though, um, what do we do? As you've heard, Facebook is going to lay off 15,000 people because of AI. Now, let me tell you better. I want you guys to think about all the work that is actually done at Facebook. What does Facebook do that requires all those employees? You know what you get here, right? This is original material here, original analysis, etc. But Facebook says it's just a platform. So what Facebook does is it regurgitates information from all of us. So here's the thing, that when they talk about losing 20% of their workforce, that is really the bottom number. I want you guys to understand this. When Facebook talks about cutting 20% of their workers as they invest highly in AI, that is the short side, because Facebook isn't a very innovative company, if you get my drift, right? So even innovative companies now will actually have their innovators working in conjunction with AI models. So altogether, that is on the low side when we talk about Meta. So continue. I have to say, Meta is not unique across the sector, right? Companies are making similar moves, just like we just said, right? They are trimming the workforce while ramping up AI investments. Surveys show that a significant percentage of corporations are already laying off workers specifically to fund artificial intelligence initiatives. What we are witnessing is not an isolated decision, it is a systemic transformation. And that should scare everybody. And by the way, anybody can call me now to interrupt, because this subject is worthy of interruption if you so desire. Telephone number 281-823-7747. Again, the number is 281-823-7747. And yet, there is an uncomfortable truth that must be confronted. Artificial intelligence, at least today, is not always directly replacing workers at scale. What it is doing is enabling a restructuring of labor. It allows corporations to justify layoffs. It allows them to reorganize around smaller, more specialized teams. It allows them to extract more productivity from more people or from fewer people. Again, using what I do as an example, if I were working for a big newspaper company, my boss could come in and say, "Okay, Berto, we have purchased licenses for Claude, ChatGPT, and Privacy. Okay, now you no longer need Ed and Jane because this can replace Ed and Jane. More, and what is that by definition? Same amount of work or more coming out of one person with two-thirds less people. That's a hell of a productivity gain. I'm going to tie that into Richard Wolff in a minute. But I just wanted you to see what's going on here because this is the future, or this is the now, I should say. The deeper issue then, it is not technology itself, it's the economic system in which that technology is deployed. You've heard me say this before. Capitalism and capitalism is mutually, or I shouldn't say mutually exclusive. Capitalism and uh, and AI should not coexist. They do not coexist, right? Because capitalism with AI owned by billionaires isn't it is it's enslavement of the masses on steroids. And I know it's hard for people to look at these concepts until it happens. If we wait till it happens, it's too late. It's almost too late as it is already. In a different framework, one centered on human well being rather than profit maximization, artificial intelligence could be liberating. It could reduce working hours. It could increase wages. It could allow people to spend more time with their families, in their communities, and in creative pursuits. The productivity gains from AI could be shared broadly. It could be shared broadly. But this is not the system we currently inhabit. Capitalism prevents that from happening. Capitalism captures, extract those who created the AI models, those who own the databases. That's what capitalism does. Okay? And until we understand that, we will continue to get hoodwinked by these folks. Anyway, instead, we live in an economy where productivity gains are captured at the top. That sounds a bit complicated. Let me where efficiency leads not to shared prosperity, but to jobs cut, where innovation is harnessed not to improve lives, but to maximize returns for shareholders. Let me talk about the first one. Um, a few when I I was a reluctant capitalist for a long time. What I call a reluctant capitalist for a long time. Um, Now it's interesting because I tell you what, guys, I have I have somebody that I have to run down and speak to for a second. So I'm going to play an old video that I did at WBAI. It's about 5 minutes, 8 minutes long, and then I'll be back. But I have something I must attend to right now.
The president has continued to express his plan to intervene in Cuba despite the most recent New York Times reporting that the U.S. and Israel's war against Iran, now in its third week, has drawn in much of the Middle East and killed over 2,000 people, mostly in Iran and Lebanon. Here to help break down where all of this is heading is our political panel, Egberto Willies, host of KPFT's Politics Done Right, Dave Leventhal, Washington, D.C. correspondent and senior editor at Notice, and one of the hosts of WBAI's Out FM, We Decide regular and political analyst Pauline Park is joining us this week, filling in for regular panelist Laura Jadid, who is traveling this week. Safe travels to Laura. And this morning, hello to the panel.
Good morning.
Thank you so kindly for having us today.
Absolutely. All right. So, listen, we're obviously going to get into the latest with the war in Iran, but Egberto, I want to start with you with this subject of Cuba. President Trump actually sounded less aggressive toward the island nation in the clip that we just heard than he frequently has as of late. So, do you think the president do you think he has a plan? What do you think that plan is? And more importantly, and I understand this is all like tea leaf reading, but what is driving this?
Well, first of all, I think that one of the big problems is that he thought he was somewhat successful in Venezuela. The reality of Venezuela was that, in effect, all he did was got the head and kept the government there. So nothing was really accomplished in Venezuela other than stealing a bit of their oil. But as far as Cuba is concerned, we have to realize that America has been trying this with Cuba for a long time. And the thing that he thinks he wants a success to say, I was the liberator of Cuba, but the one driving him is Marco Rubio, the Cuban senator from Florida. They have no chance whatsoever of really getting Cuba legitimately because the people in Cuba, even as the folks in Miami seem to want the US to go in, that is not what the people of Cuba want. The people of Cuba just want the ability to have their own economic successes. We are the reasons Cuba is in the state that it is with respect to Donald Trump saying, I'm going to go take it, or what he was saying and sounding softer a bit now. The only reason he's sounding softer, Jenna, is because he knows he's failing in Iran and he cannot afford another failure. So he may be a bit cautious in Cuba, even as Marco Rubio may just want him to blow it wide open.
But where are the Democrats in all of this? So, just so that I'm hearing this correctly, is this a case of elections have consequences and the Democrats have no power? Or is this the case of a party that is still trying to find its footing and determine how its either its messaging or its plan of, for lack of a better description, attack against this administration? Moving on, um, turning to the war in Iran, we saw Egberto, we saw the number of casualties more than double last week as 6 National Guard members were killed when a refueling aircraft crashed in Iraq. So do you believe American casualties have a better chance of changing U.S. public opinion on the war in a way that the over the reported 2,000 mostly civilian casualties have not so far? Like, does this up the game when it comes to Americans' feelings about this, resistance, disapproval?
I'm going to go back to something that I've said before, and that is the only lives that matter in our world here in the United States is the lives of Americans. So the reality is, it doesn't matter how many foreigners die. It doesn't matter how many Iranians die, how many Palestinians die. None of that matters. It's when Americans start to die or when American capital is affected. Those are the only things that will stop this war. American capital in danger or American lives, but it has to be the right kind of American lives that are in danger. But if Jenna, if I can go back to something you said before, which is so very
Mm-hmm.
important, you mentioned earlier about where are the Democrats? Are they in the weeds? The Democrats are in the weeds purposefully. Let me give a little example. The thing about it is, what is Trump doing that neoliberal Democrats don't do themselves? Except for social programs like Medicare, etc. Everything that Trump is doing is just done under the color of neoliberal Republicans. And that is the reason why they are so quiet. There are people that are very loud right now, but we don't hear them. There are many progressives that are out there saying the word, speaking, trying to get the news media to pay attention to what's really happening in this country, both on its war stance, on its economic issues, etc. But they're silenced because the purveyors of our news are not carrying them. So it isn't that the Democratic Party is quiet. It is that the neoliberal portion of the Democratic Party is quiet because Trump is not doing all that much different than what they have done, but except under social issues. In other words, the wars, the attack on Central American countries, etc. It has been the same continuous United States policy throughout, and we don't read, but it's reported differently depending on who does it. And I think when we get honest, the independent media gets honest about all of that, then we can actually make that difference.
Well, perhaps that's a conversation we can have in the future, because what you're saying reminds me of an article about the Republican Party back during the Tea Party days, which was the war in the Republican Party is just getting started. I do wonder if the two quote unquote factions of the Democratic Party are really just getting started,
You
getting
nailed it.
wound up against each
You
other.
nailed it.
Speaking of those Democrat on Democrat primaries, we just saw one in Texas. Egberto, I would love to have time to unpack what took place between James Tallarico and Jasmine Crockett, but we don't have time. What I do have time to ask you before we have to wrap this segment is, how do you see all of this impacting the day-to-day life of Americans? Because we were promised lower grocery prices and cost of living, and everything seems to be trending in the opposite direction.
Well, the prices are going to be going up on gasoline, food, and everything else. And my fear is that right now Democrats are not laying the path down to point all of that directly at the hands of Donald Trump and his posse. And in that, Donald Trump and those guys are so very good at marketing that they may be able to find a way to cauterize in other people's minds that after all, it wasn't the war. After all, it wasn't our policies. I think it is time now that Democrats better get their act together and start laying the pathway to how we're getting to where we're going to be, which is not a good place.
All right. Well, we are going to have to leave it there, but I would love to thank our panel. My guests, you just heard from Egberto Willies, host of KPFT's Politics Done Right, Dave Leventhal, Washington, D.C. correspondent and senior editor at Notice, and one of the hosts of WBAI's Out FM, We Decide regular, and political analyst Pauline Park.
All right, I made it back. If I'm blowing a little bit, I had to run. I had to run to take care of that. Anyway, folks, let's see. FAQ says, Berto, when you come back, reminds me of the rotating villain story. Two videos from Blakely about that. You know what? You're tickling my fancy. I'll play it at the end. Let me go ahead and finish the story. Last I left, we were at, but let's see, in a different framework, one centered on human well-being rather than profit maximization, artificial intelligence could be liberating. It could reduce working hours. It could increase wages. It could allow people to spend more time with their families in their communities and creative pursuits. But to maximize returns to shareholders, that's what it does now. And so the same pattern repeats itself in technology advances, productivity increases, wealth concentrates. Workers are told to adapt. Richard Wolff, I was a reluctant capitalist when I came to the United States. I didn't know it. I didn't know what the hell capitalism means or all of that. And I remember I wrote this in my book, As I See It, Class Warfare, the Only Resort to Right-Wing Doom. I remember going to class and we were talking about widgets. I was taking my first economics class and we were talking about widgets, right? And that was my engineering elective. I always kind of liked that stuff, right? So we were talking about widgets and we're learning about supply and demand. And I remember also the prices and that kind of stuff. So we were talking about widgets and this factory being able to build a whole lot of widgets fast. But the demand for the widgets kept on increasing but we could meet the demand. So the professor said, what happens to the prices? And I'm like, what happens to the prices? It gets cheaper because there's no scarcity. We can make a whole lot of them. And the guy said, no, the price increases. There is a lot of demand. And I kept on saying, but there's a lot of supply. Says, no, but people want it. So, and then that's where I learned about that curve, the curve that you keep increasing the price where the profit keeps going up until you reach that point that the price reaches so high that people start to drop the product and then the profit margin falls. There are all these things you learn in economics that has nothing to do with the well-being of humanity, right? It all has to do with how much can you extract out of a person before they says uncle. And even then, I learned that and I said, oh, okay, with supply and demand, prices increase if there's always demand, even if you have the supply to meet the demand. That's why you can have an unlimited amount of oil in the world. And all they do is they play with the real demand to play with the prices of oil. And that goes with just about everything you buy today, right? Nothing you buy today, the price is what it really is. It's what you are willing to pay for it. That's all it is, what you're willing to pay for it. And there are certain things that you want. And if there's a monopoly on it, well, you know what that means. And that is what, again, I was still a capitalist, still a capitalist, still a capitalist. Then I went to Richard Wolff. You've heard me interview Richard Wolff several times. Watch me interview him. He's an economist out of New York, the Massachusetts UMass. And I went to his thing called Capitalism Hits the Fan. Look that up. Capitalism Hits the Fan. It's a thing he did. Uh, uh, con, uh, I don't know what you call it. Anyway, so I went to it. And the one thing that taught me immediately that I was looking at something that was evil was when supply side economics began. And he drew that chart for us. And he said, look what happened. Look at consumer spending. People kept on buying. People kept on buying. He said, look at wages. Wages stayed fairly stagnant. Wages stayed fairly stagnant. And then after that, he said, where did that come from? How can wages stay stagnant and people kept on buying and buying more? Then we said, I don't know. He said the differential between wages and productivity gains is credit. You got more efficient in producing more widgets for the corporatocracy, and they pocketed it. And the money that they pocketed, it should have been wage increases, but that's not what they did. The money they pocketed, they turned into loans to you to keep buying their stuff. So not only did you now owe them for the things you bought on credit, you were paying them to having borrowed the monies that they should have paid you in the first place. That is evil. That is not even greed. That is evil. But look, they didn't only do it on the scale for you as an individual. They did it on a scale as us as a country. Because as they came in and they said, government spend too much, you're spending too much money. What did they do? They elected people who reduced the taxes and forced us to borrow to run the government. And what were we borrowing, people? What were we borrowing? We were borrowing the taxes that we gave them back. We were borrowing from the taxes we gave them back at a high interest rate that we then paid back to them. And because anything they borrowed from us had the good faith of the United States in it, they had no problem giving us as much as we wanted, taking the tax break. Just keep taking the tax cuts, not paying their fair share, not paying us the wages, as they continued to milk us from both ends. So we don't get the wage increases. We borrow the money personally to keep up the standard of living we want. And at the same time, the government, they don't, with the extra money they're getting not to pay for us, and the extra money they're loaning us, and the money they're getting back from the interest that we pay them for having borrowed the money they didn't pay us, they then lend the government the money who they pay their people not to have taxes on them. We have been conned. We have been willfully conned. Because of our gullibility, we have decided to accept it. We have just accepted it. And when you have somebody like me and others talking about these issues, you're a damn socialist. No, we just care. We just care about humanity. We just care. That's what care looks like. You know, that is what care looks like. Stop taking advantage of people. I'm starting a new project. I can't speak a lot about it yet because it's still in its formative years. I mean, formative weeks. It is with some a very smart economist that I just met today, and a writer that I like to quote. And we're putting something together that's going to be informational, instructive, and it's going to go through all of this. But you see, we have we have to get people to understand what the con looks like, because the con is really done so well. You know, they indoctrinate you into thinking that you are a rugged individual and that you can attain anything, and that the private sector is where everything really occurs, that we as a collective cannot work on our own, that government is bad. In as much as when they say government is bad, they're saying you are bad because you are government, right? Government is we, the people of the United States, in order to form a I mean, look, we are government, right? We are government. So AI, we better tackle it rather quickly. Meta has reported plan to cut 20% of its workforce while pouring billions into artificial intelligence is simply the latest, most visible expression of that pattern. It reveals an economic model that does not distribute the benefits of innovative equitably. It exposes a system where decisions are driven not by what is best for society, but what is most profitable for those at the top. The question then is not whether artificial intelligence will shape the workforce. It will. The question is who will benefit from that transformation? That's the question. That's the question. Okay? Because at its core, okay, let's see. For some reason, I see the phone ringing, but I don't get it on. Let me see if it works. Ray, I'm not sure if the phone is working. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, great. It is working. All right, what's up, Ray?
Well, I just wanted to give you kudos for that great explanation of just exactly the vicious cycle that is antiseptic slavery. I mean, basically, it started in the 80s, with Reaganomics. The wages stayed stagnant. But hey, you got this credit, you got this loan you can get. You can essentially buy money that you don't actually have access to, and for the promise of paying a little something on the top, interest rates, you can have access to the same material pieces and comfort that a more well-off person who actually has wealth can actually afford. And I learned this at my last job, which was the call center, and also with the AI thing, but I'll bring that up shortly because I know we're at the end. But,
Yes.
I noticed like every year I was working, the wage was not increasing, but the work was increasing. And to the effect of productivity, back to the point you made on AI, we used to have a person that worked in the building who did scheduling and HR. But then that person had retired and they moved the scheduling to AI. So when it came time for me to request vacation or get any kind of, personal time, everything was blocked off based on what the AI scheduling model gave you and not what a person could give you if you sat down and said, here's the schedule I would prioritize if I can, do it myself. But every time I would try to request a schedule change, they say, well, the AI model won't allow us to put you in a scheduled time slot right there. And it was very frustrating. It became time where I just felt like I was a hamster running the wheel. And I didn't feel like I had value in this company other than, a talking head that was at their beck and call for all intents and purposes. And it got very draining. And I know a lot of people go through that same process with their jobs because a lot of jobs don't even factor in personal time in scheduling anymore because of AI. And to your effect,
Absolutely right.
we just
I
don't
get
make
it.
enough money.
I I get it. I get it. But anyway, my brother, thank you for that. We got to close this baby down, okay?
Appreciate the time, bro.
Have a good one, and thanks for the kudos, Hermanos. Anyway, Rudnan, I saw the three items. We covered the one with the report already. I'll do the other two tomorrow if you throw it back into the link for me tomorrow. But I want to close out with the last few paragraphs. The question then is not whether artificial intelligence will reshape the workforce. It will. The question is who will benefit from that transformation. If the current trajectory continues, the answer is clear. Corporations will become more powerful, more efficient, and more profitable, while workers face greater insecurity and fewer opportunities. But it does not have to be this way, because at its core, this is not a story about machines replacing humans. It's a story about choices, about how society decides to organize its economy, distribute its wealth, and value its people. And those choices are still ours to make. And that's the thing, people. We are not supposed to be feeling impotent. We are not to be supposed to be feeling scared. We are supposed to be understanding what's going on and understanding that we are the ones who elect the people who create policies. I repeat, we are the ones who elect people who create policies. And the policy should be AI belongs to all of us because it is a collective knowledge of all of us. Everything everything that you do, everything that you write, everything that you experience, every hospital that you've gone to, every book you have read, all that statistic, that metadata, that dynamic is you. And the reason AI is able to come up with intelligent answers, sometimes not all that intelligent, but mostly intelligent answers, is because it has the composite knowledge of you. It's just the brain absorbing everything and it has infinite amount of storage. Please, we have to not fear this thing, but own this thing. Don't forget, guys, as Cheryl Elkins has pointed out, uh, Zoom Coffee with Egberto on the 17th of April, Friday, the 17th of April. I've just thrown it into the other chat. It is tinyurl.com/coffee with Egberto. tinyurl.com/coffee with Egberto. I'm going to just go over about 30 seconds. Look, it is our country, it is our knowledge, and we have to step out we have to step out and make sure not to allow these feeble billionaires, because again, they look strong because they have billions, but those are billions that they stole without arms, without fighting, without anything. Those are billions that belong to us. We created those billions. They created nothing. I want you to understand that. Look, um, I personally, and I'm going to use personally here, I created a lot of products. If I were a capitalist, those products would be products. Anybody, all of you here, there's something that you thought about that could become a product and make billions. You're just not inherently that greedy one that wants to necessarily do that. You give it to friends. let's remember this, folks. Let's remember this. Anyway, I got to get out of here. Please remember to go to politicsdoneright.com/newsletter. Again, that is politicsdoneright.com/newsletter to subscribe to our channel. Subscription to our channel is free, of course, but we are asking those who have the wherewithal to please consider becoming a paid subscriber. A paid subscriber gives you access to read all our books, but you'll always, whether free or paid, you can read all our stuff because we want to inform. I couldn't figure out a model that says to be informed you have to pay. Does that make any sense? We're trying to be an activist journalist. You know, I for a minute I had, if you look at my articles, you'll see it says complimentary portion. That portion for a few months were not complimentary, and for me it was always a heartache. How can I talk about people, informing people, if we're then saying to be informed you have to pay? Doesn't work that way. So I'm asking that some of you be altruistically enough to say, I understand what you're doing. I believe in what you're doing. I want to help you do what you do. And when you hit that subscribe button, not only become a free subscriber, but consider also becoming a paid subscriber. Um, can't do it without, this doesn't exist without that, folks. Doesn't exist without that. All right. Love you all. My name is Egberto Willies. This is Politics Done Right. And you guys know how I end this baby. I am what? Out.
Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Willies. This is a progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, progressive, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. We are an independent media outlet that, unlike mainstream media beholden to corporations, we only owe allegiance to you. Remember, you can also send me a tweet at EGBERTOWILLIES. That is at Egberto Willies. Let us engage. It is Politics Done Right.